Hello, and welcome to a new episode of NSPE's Committee Corner. I'm your host, Margaret Edwards, Policy Associate here at NSPE. And this week, we're going to be talking about a recent hearing within the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure that was an oversight hearing of the FAA and aircraft safety, and use that to pivot into a larger conversation about the important oversight role of committees. So the hearing itself was titled 3 Years After Lion Air 610, FAA Implementation of the 2020 Aircraft Certification, Safety and Accountability Act. At the hearing, FAA Administrator Steve Dixon appeared before the Subcommittee on Aviation such that they could examine the ongoing work within the FAA to implement provisions of the Bipartisan Aircraft Certification, Safety and Accountability Act. By appearing before the committee, FAA Administrator Dixon was able to provide an update, but also answer any questions that members of the subcommittee had for him regarding the implementation of this bill, but also any other larger questions about work that the FAA is doing. So the 2020 Aircraft Certification, Safety and Accountability Act. Let's just talk about that piece of legislation, since that's what this hearing is kind of focused on. So this bipartisan, bicameral legislation strengthens the FAA's aircraft certification process, ensures transparency, accountability, and integrity in FAA regulation of U.S. aircraft manufacturers, addresses issues identified related to human factors, automation in the cockpit, and international pilot training, and authorizes nearly $275 million over the next 5 years in robust FAA oversight and aviation safety improving programs and initiatives. And also, per the T&I committee, this law is the first major targeted aviation safety legislation enacted in a full decade, and the culmination of an 18-month investigation by committee staff, the longest in the committee's history. This bill was the result of the committee's investigation into the multiple Boeing 737 MAX crashes that occurred in recent years. And the reason why this hearing is so timely is that we are approaching the 3rd anniversary of the Lion Air 610 crash. So this presented a timely opportunity for members of the subcommittee to question FAA Administrator Dixon about the progress that the FAA is making towards accomplishing the goals and directives found within the 2020 Aircraft Certification, Safety and Accountability Act. One question that I found particularly poignant during the question and A segment of this hearing came from Representative Kai Kahele of Hawaii. And he came in with a question of, safety versus profits, and, how that question affects the oversight of aircraft manufacturers. That just kind of resonated in my mind, especially as, knowing how we here at NSPE talk about the need for professional engineers, and how by having PEs involved in various fields, it ensures that the public safety is being considered and put above and held paramount to profit, to project timelines. And something that just really kind of stood out to me, and kind of that sounds like something that we talk about here all the time at NSPE. So I was just really excited to hear Representative Kahele ask that question of FAA Administrator Dixon. So now that we've kind of talked a little bit about this hearing, I want to use this as a jumping off point for talking about the more general and larger role of committees that deals with oversight. Committees, yes, I think whenever we think of the committee system, we think of their role in the legislative process and think how they work to accomplish legislation and get legislation passed through committee and sent to the floor of their respective chamber. Or we think of them having committees as having hearings that are just relevant to their jurisdiction. So in transportation and infrastructure, it would be, bringing in Secretary Buttigieg to ask about kind of, the Biden administration's larger vision for the built infrastructure within the country. But another role that committees do have is oversight. And they get to oversee the implementation of legislation that they've passed through their committee, or of federal agencies that fall within their committee's jurisdiction. And in this case, it's the FAA, for the Federal Aviation Administration, falling under the jurisdiction of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee's Subcommittee on Aviation. So in using that, committees can actually check that federal agencies are doing what they've been tasked with, particularly if it comes through legislation. And it's also kind of a responsibility to the constituents that they serve to ensure that that federal agencies are doing things to the benefit of a member's constituents and just of the general citizenry. So that's something that, as we move forward, and close out this calendar year, but move into the upcoming session of Congress, is that this is a power that committees have and can be beneficial to putting the professional engineering voice before members of Congress. It can be an opportunity to make sure that our questions are being asked, particularly if it's in relation to a piece of legislation or a federal agency that is before a certain committee. So it's something that we have as a tool of leverage, is using this as an opportunity to make sure that the professional engineer's voice is being heard, and as an opportunity that we'll continue to seek out and look for, and search for ways that we can put NSPE, put the professional engineering community before members of Congress, and even before high-ranking officials such as the administrator of various federal agencies. So with that concludes this episode of NSPE's Committee Corner. So please be sure to tune in next time, and you can find the NSPE Committee Corner in the NSPE Advocacy Center or on the NSPE YouTube page. Thank you.